Okay, people, welcome. It's another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best new metal podcast with two dudes who are old enough to be there. I'm one half of your host, you do, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Mr. Jr. Tim, how is it going?
Oh, even better than last time because the drinks are kicking.
The drinks are kicking and my microphone problems are solved. So we are off, everybody. I am drinking a 10-year-old can of Guinness. So let's see how this goes. If I stop in the middle of the episode, it's because I'm projectile vomiting everywhere. This episode is going to be a bit of a surprise. And it's going to be a surprise in the sense of I told Tim, hey, we're doing a deep dive, but I didn't tell him what album we are doing. So this album came to me in a flash of inspiration. I remember drinking to this album quite a lot my freshman year of college. It is new metal, but also new metal adjacent.
Give me a couple
It is
hints here, and then I'll see if I can figure it out.
all right. St. Louis,
Mm, go ahead.
St. Louis Snowcore tour.
Snowcore.
I think they played Snowcore.
Go ahead.
Epic, Immortal Epic,
Go ahead.
opened for Corn. When they toured off of uh the second album,
Life's peachy.
Life is Peachy.
I have no clue, dude.
Really?
No clue.
Uh, this episode we are going to deep dive on "Receiving the Gift of Flavor" by The Urge,
Holy shit.
the
Okay.
only new metal band to actually have horns and ska tendencies,
I'm
which makes them,
very, very surprised, and I love this record. Okay.
dude. How this? You want to talk about a drinking record? My girlfriend's mad she got the frying pan. Right, we're going to the liquor store is actually one of the songs. Like, I mean, this was back when we could have fun like this, and the cancer culture police and the fun police weren't running around. Good times, good times. So
This is another summer drinking record right here.
yes, yes. So we're in the mid '90s. What's around? What's it still around? Corn is out, but they're not really. They're getting to be a big thing. They're starting to grow legs. Grunge is basically fading, and everybody was doing something weird. Everybody's doing something different. We've talked about this numerous times. And one of those bands doing something weird and something different is St. Louis. St. Louis's own kids, The Urge. Their debut release, major label release, Receiving the Gift of Flavor in '95. But then it was reissued on a major in '96. This is the perfect example of new metal fusion. And by fusion, I mean not the skronky proggy stuff. This is when new metal was trying to combine all these different things with all these different genres, and it was totally, we got it. Everybody has probably heard me say this so many times. Everything was up for grabs. Nothing was set. You could experiment with just anything. And when we think about where this genre goes, where you have Apex Theory and really incorporates some Armenian influences, right? And you have Puya, who was doing they had a horn section, but they were doing basically Puerto Rican salsa music, right? This was a band doing basically kind of like ska adjacent, ska metal. But there we
Dude,
go,
that
ska
the
metal.
opening track of this record is fucking awesome. Love it.
With the harmonics, yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. So this band, I want to dig into this a little bit. This might not be a super long episode, but I think we need to talk about the Urge because they were huge in their local scene. And this is back when bands had to really bust their ass in their hometown to really get something going. They were a huge local act. They reissued their album as a major label, and then it takes off. And they get really, really renowned. They were truly they were a band that took that DIY system and made it work for them. And they were authentic and they were themselves and they kind of got sucked into the vortex that was new metal. So before we go into the new metal part of them, we should talk about where they were. So they were in St. Louis, Missouri in the early '90s. Uh, the interesting thing about Midwestern music scenes, like we could talk about Peoria and Mudvayne, we could talk about Slipknot in Iowa, we could talk about a lot of these bands that came from this American Head Charge, right, Minneapolis. We could talk about all these bands that came from the center of the country. The there's gravity that comes from LA and New York, and that pulls everything around it into that area. So on the West Coast, it didn't matter if you was far north as Portland and Seattle, you were going down to LA to play, right? On the East Coast, everybody was ending up in New York, Whether you were Florida or Maine or anywhere in between, you were ending up in New York. But in the middle of the country, there isn't that gravitational pull. So what that allowed these scenes and bands to do is to develop on their own, of their own accord, and they were allowed to try. They not allowed. I'm sorry. They were given free reign to try and experiment with different things because there was nothing else to compare it to. You had nothing else to look at, and uh, this band they were sight. They were great live. Did you ever see them live, Tim?
No, but I remember this. Dude, we used to listen to this band all the fucking time back in the day,
It
especially
really
Master of
is.
Styles, because I think that's the better record. But
It's drinking music. This is
yeah,
drinking party music. Good mood music. So they start out with in they have a they have an independent release in '89. It's called Bust Me Out. They did another album on the small indie label called Neat Guy Recordings called Magically Delicious in '92. They did a live album. Did you know that in '93
no,
called Fat Babies in the Mix, which is great. But after this is where the band starts to change. So after that live recording, which is all their old stuff, which after the show, I think I downloaded it from SoulSeek. I got to find it and I want to listen to it. At that point is when they add the horn section, the horns and the keyboards, and they go to a seven-member lineup in '94. And the other thing that they did, Tim, I don't know if you did this, which is totally insane, but it worked in '95. They're in '95 they stopped selling their CDs at shows. They stopped, and they went into a retail only partnership with Best Buy,
mm,
meaning the only place you could get the Urge CDs was at a Best Buy store.
that's weird.
Weird, but in the St. Louis area alone, within 6 months, they sold 50,000 copies.
Damn.
So at that point, national labels are like, what? Because they're looking at the charts coming out of Best Buy and Sam Goody and all that other stuff, and they're going, a local band sold 50,000 copies in 6 months. So weird, but genius, because you can't help but notice all the albums that were being sold. And what that did is all these national labels were like, "Holy shit, this is an independent band," and they've landed on a Billboard chart, and they're truly just a regional player. They're not a big name band from one of the coastal areas. They 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 actually they went for it and they fucking did it, which is brilliant. And it makes you wonder, like, hey, what if somebody signed a title exclusive? Right, where they can only put their music on a title or a Spotify exclusive, or you could do what Yeezy does, where he just puts out his shit and prays that nobody takes it down because it's so amazingly offensive.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I still swear by his sock shoes; those things are great. Okay, receiving the gift of flavor. So they record at a place called the Studio in Springfield, Missouri. They also did some more sessions at Chapman Recording and Mastering, and then they recorded at Chicago Tracks and they produce it themselves. They produce this album themselves, and with their friend of theirs, Michael Vale Blum. And apparently, his philosophy was really important to how the band sound. He was a big believer in balancing the group's elements so it all comes out as a unified whole, which I think actually really worked for them.
Yeah, because
And
from what I remember on that record, the bass is really high in the mix.
yes, yes. Well, he actually talks about this in my research.
Okay.
Apparently, recording a seven piece that has horns with heavy metal guitars it creates a recording disaster. Biggest problem being the frequency management, and the mid range frequencies of your saxophone and your trombone directly compete with the distorted guitar crunch. So he had to really lean into that punchy low end. To your point about the bass, is very, very high in the mix, uh, while also making sure that brass, um, the attack is there. It sounds unique and it doesn't get lost in the sauce. When I was doing again when I was doing this research, they said one of the biggest differences between this album and your traditional ska punk stuff, your boss tones and all that sort of stuff, was they were very thin and treble heavy, very much trebled in the middle, whereas receiving the gift of flavor gave the trombones to sound really thick, which adds to that rhythm and that rhythm section of the basses and the drums. And I actually, when I ran this abstract, I put in an album and I was listening and I was like, holy shit. Like, and now I can pick it out now that I know what to look for, which is totally nuts.
I'm trying to picture. I gotta go back and picture what it sounds like. Because I know, like I said, that first song, the harmonics and shit is a banger. I'm gonna have to go back to that like right after this.
Yeah. You'll text me later, be like, yo, I'm having a good time. This is great.
I just had like
The,
a brain fart thinking right on air as we're talking.
my last two brain cells are arm wrestling, and one of them is losing. Um, so when they recorded, Steve Ewing, their singer, their lyricist, really energetic guy, bouncing all over the place. He wrote all the lyrics. He did a lot of the melody, like he did a lot of that focus. But apparently, the songwriting was shared amongst everybody, and arranging for a 7 piece is kind of difficult. And they all shared in that, and they made it work. Brainless,
It's ska Slipknot over here.
yes, all washed up. Where they move between reggae and that's the other thing. Not only is it ska, well, ska has its basis in reggae, but they have some reggae parts, and then they have these really fast shifts where they go into like a really super rhythmic part, especially in the chorus. That's really kind of cool and impressive that they were able to pull that off. Right? It says something. Again, Steve Ewing was their lead singer. Uh, Carl Grable was their bassist. He also did a lot of their art direction. Jerry Joss was the guitar. John Pisoni was the drummer, and then they had a saxophonist and two trombonists, which is
Damn,
kind of
too.
cool. And the second trombonist also played keyboards. Here's an interesting thing. Um, After
Wait,
the
he plays it on
original,
the keyboard?
he plays some keyboards in some of the
Oh,
songs.
I thought okay.
No, he doesn't play the trombone on the keyboard. He plays an
I was
actual
about to say, yeah, wait, what?
piano keyboard. Um, Howard Benson shows up after this has already been recorded. To your point, he worked with them on Master of Styles.
I think that's the better
Uh,
record, but yeah.
I can't remember the last time I listened to it. I'm going to listen to it tomorrow. And the article, when I did my research, I came across one article which talks about how Howard Benson was known for his ability to take something really kind of odd and eclectic and translate it into a platinum hit. He worked with them in Master of Styles, but I think at that point the tide had just gone out and people's tastes were going in different directions. Um, but this first album is them with their most energy at their most uninhibited. And they signed in 96 to Immortal Records, which was the Epic Sony imprint. Big move for them career wise. Immortal was the band was the label that introduced Korn and Incubus to the world. They were the one who got them in that market, and they got this album. This signing was wild. Uh, they got a big cash advance. I don't remember how much. 3 full lengths and a full high budget production for the video for All Washed Up. And the label has came out and said that the urge to us represented a missing link. And it was the link between the third wave ska movement, which was going on at the time, and the rising heavy rock scene. And so that's what the label got. Them, the band, what did they get? Well, they got national distribution and promotion, which, I mean, 50,000 records at a Best Buy in St. Louis area is kind of impressive. Now they have that giant hand in the market pushing them behind the scenes. When they did sign to Immortal, they reissued Receiving the Gift of Flavor in 96. Um, However, when they reissued it, they removed the song Killing is Easy and they added Take Away. Take away, take away, take away, take away what you got from me when I don't need it. Great song. Great song. Um, However, this decision was driven because they were trying to find a more radio friendly, cohesive presentation. The sad part was, though, Killing is Easy was a fan favorite and it was kind of dark and aggressive. And they took that out because it didn't really fit what the label was trying to do with the band at the time, was to get them into a big scene. Oh, here we go. Here's the Guinness kicking in. So, the opening track stays the same, both versions, 95 and 96. Track 7 and 8, Killing is Easy Goes Away, Take Away is there. The singles from the first issue, the first time they released it, Neat Guy was Brainless and All Washed Up. When they went to Immortal, it was Brainless all washed up, and it's getting hectic. It's getting hectic, get crazy. They had a Brainless remix as a hidden track, but the big difference is this distribution. You go from a regional through Best Buy to a global with Epic Sony. And the other thing to think about, Tim, when this comes out, we just talked about the other band who was doing a fusion sound at the time that blew up into the fucking stratosphere in 95, 96. 311.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, duh.
They're the other band doing that goofy fusion sound, pulling in some hard rock with reggae and some dub, and 311 was doing it. No Doubt at the time was bringing ska into like pop into the mainstream. Sublime, right? Sublime was huge at that point. They were bringing dancehall stuff into punk music. So while this band possessed what was quote unquote called a nu metal spirit, they still had traditional ska instrumentation, but they were one of the bands who was right there in the mix with the rest of them. And again, I saw them live. They opened for recording. Them super high energy. They were all over the place. The lead singer was all over the place. It was really, really cool. They actually opened and toured with Deftones. And well, so here you go. Talking about both sides of the coin. They played with Deftones, but they also played with Goldfinger, which is a
Doesn't surprise
traditional
me.
ska band. Yep. They were all over. They were able to play all over. So they played Edge Fest. They played the Jayhawk Music Festival. They could play with nu metal bands, which in that aggressive end, but they could also do some of the funk stuff that 311 and some of those other bands were doing, and they held their own, right? They actually played with the Deftones in both Philly and Asbury Park, and I'm really sad I missed that show. Apparently, they were also, I came to learn through doing this research, they were very good friends with 311. So a lot of their fan bases overlapped and were kind of the same thing. They ended up opening for 311 quite a lot in 95 and 96. And I think stylistically it made sense because they were both, happier, let's have a good time bands. But when you think about all the angst and all the aggression and anger that came out of Korn and Deftones and Limp Bizkit and all that stuff, they were kind of doing something more fun. They were doing something, hey, let's get goofy and have a good time. However, they didn't really do as well nationally as one would have hoped. Uh, they were great in their region. There were a lot of fans who were loyal to them. They sold very very well. But when you got out into the national stage with national critics and the whole nine, it didn't really translate as well. In St. Louis, the album was considered a masterpiece, right? They were the local kids done good. They played their dues. They did all their club shows. They did selling tickets and all that sort of stuff. They were accessible. They had a lot of energy. Nationally, it was positive, but it was more mixed to positive. There were a lot of reviewers that actually liked the band's songwriting, their sound quality. But at this point, this is still early in the nu metal trend. Remember, critics were struggling figuring out what category to fit this band into because the horns prevent them from being a serious metal band, but the metal riffs prevent them from being the extra mozzarella stick. Right? I'm glad you got that reference. Long running joke with us. All Music called it favorable. Alter AP calls it very favorable. Entertainment Weekly gives it mixed, C minus. Sputnik and Rolling Stone both called it favorable. But this also goes to show you that the critics again know somewhere between jack and shit about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
The critics didn't like it. The fans loved it. High energy. They were great to see on the road. They opened for Korn as life on the Life is Peachy tour, and the band actually they were huge. It was that opener. It was Korn, The Far Side, and The Urge. And I think the 311. No, 311 and The Far Side opened for Cypress Hill, touring off Temples of Boom at the Electric Factory. Man, that was a show. I showed up in a Marilyn Manson t-shirt and black painted fingernails, and I was high as you could ever imagine. I didn't smoke a damn thing. I just stood in the back, just like whoa. And then my roommate at the time went the wrong way down a one-way street. I think it was the entirety of Race. He went the wrong way.
That's always
Good
fun.
times. Good
You
times.
you used to
But
paint your fingernails, huh?
I was like, well, I'm going to a show with a bunch of potheads. Why don't I do something different? And I had like a choker and a Marilyn Manson shirt and black fingernails, and it was Totally the first and last time I've done that. But it was I don't know, it was college, it was kind of fun. And I was so high.
Nothing wrong with
So
that.
high. Jesus. Good times. Good times. So there was both a blessing and a curse that came with them, the urge being associated with new metal. The blessing was the Association of Immortal Records, the new metal movement that got them exposure. They shared the stage, Korn, Deftones, Limp Bizkit. They got exposed to millions of fans they might not normally been exposed to, and these fans are moving towards a heavy, real heavy rock based stuff. And then they still had some time to have some fun with the Urge, the excuse me, the tag of Immortal, right? That IR with the circle with the orbit. That was like a badge of a badge of blessing, like a quality seal. Everybody saw it's like, oh, okay, great, it's immortal. It's like when you saw it, you would buy anything that was out on Roadrunner because you knew that if it was on Roadrunner, I was probably gonna like it. For a while, Immortal Epic had the same cachet. The curse, though, was they got ended up typecast into the new metal bucket, and they ended up with that label. And because they were orbit in the same orbits as Korn, and they were on the same label. People were looking for something darker and aggressive, not the upbeat, funky stuff that they were doing at the time. And if you go back to your point, if you go from receiving the gift of flavor to master of styles, and then too much stereo, they 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 got more radio friendly. They got smoother, but by doing that, they took away the energy that made this first album so nuts because it was so much fun. And then they got swept up with everybody else in the 2000s, the early 2000s, when new metal faced its backlash and it just kind of went out the window. So they were basically just discarded, and they really didn't deserve it. And they had a great pedigree. It was kind of sophisticated. They had way more, I would say, chops than some of the other new metal bands at the time, but they just got caught up. They got caught up with those bands. And by leaning into that new metal side of them to achieve their national success, they alienated, unfortunately, their ska and punk fans who might have been a little open minded and willing to check something out that was in the same vein as Korn or whatever. And I think that kind of wore away the ability they had to translate to that type of audience. Uh, they did a 20th anniversary celebration in 2015. They re-recorded the entire album before a studio audience in Missouri and Ozark Theater, Webster Groves, which is actually really cool if you think about it. I gotta find that studio quality live recording. That's really really cool. Uh, Steve Ewing, the lead singer, big energetic. He was all over the place. He is still vibrant in St. Louis. He opened a place called Steve's Hot Dogs, and he actually comes out and talks to the fans all the time. He is basically big in their community. It's they do a gift of they had a collaboration where they did the gift of flavor as a beer, and whenever there's they do a Mississippi Nights nostalgia event where the original home club was, I guess, something like that. Kind of cool for them. So the lead singer ended up making a go of it and turning it into part of his identity, and he keeps it going forward for the art fans, which is really really neat. And
When
I mean,
didn't
if we
they
had,
put it? They put out a record like not long ago.
I think in the early 2020s, maybe
Yeah,
the
that's what I was gonna say too.
Urge, the Urge discography. They did Galvanized in 2013,
There you go.
and they did some
16
singles
years.
in. They did a single in 2012, 2015. They did 2017 a single in 2018. It actually Galvanized hit number 49 on the Heat Seekers. That's kind of
Damn.
cool. Uh, that's actually really neat. Master of Styles and then Too Much Stereo. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So let's wrap it up and take it home, Tim. So the band did a couple things to trailblaze, right? They included horns. They included ska in a quasi new metal type sound. They showed that if you're a mover and a shaker in a regional audience in a regional area, regional market, you can actually get some things going. They were able to combine a very unique sound into something that was really fun. while the New Metal Association gave them a ladder to success, it also contributed directly to their downfall. Um, the band's refusal to get rid of the horns, which is what keeps their flavor going. They use that term. Was actually really cool. It basically helped ensure that they would still be talked about and outlast the new metal trend that was basically defining them. And in closing, I think they created something really unique and really interesting. And I'm glad that we got to talk about it. And I hope some of our fans, if they haven't heard it, they're going out and checking it out now because it is a really fun album.
I In closing, I'm very, very surprised that you picked this record. I was not expecting this at all. It's actually one of them records where, like, I think about it. Like, when you said it, I was like, holy shit. I remember driving with my buddy Steve, and he would always have these records on. And he's like, you don't know this band? And it was like, no. But he just play it. And I'm like, because back then, you have to remember, it's 85 degrees, it's June. Everyone had the sound systems in their car, the windows
Yep.
down. You're always trying to impress someone with the sound of your car. Well, not the sound of your car, but the sound coming from your car.
Yep.
And it was always this. He was a huge 311 fan. He's probably listening to this episode right now. But, you know, I just it just used just saying the name of this record just take took me back way back then. I'm like,
That's
that's very
awesome.
surprising, dude. Like,
That's
dude,
awesome.
that's all we used to listen to. Music, Grassroots, The Urge. I mean, all that stuff. So it's like crazy for you to even bring this up.
I'm glad I surprised you. It literally came to me as a matter of inspiration. I think it was Monday morning. We record on Wednesdays, everybody. I thought, oh shit, I should surprise Tim and we should do the Urge because that's a really fun, exciting record. Really great. My girlfriend's mad. She got the frying pan.
Yeah. And we talked
Now
about this record numerous times too.
we have talked about it and then we've forgotten about it. And we've talked about it, we forgot about it. And I
Yeah,
just said, hey, you know what? Let's do something deep in the new metal vein. We just did pitchshifter.com, which that episode should be out by now. Let's do something. Let's keep it going with some new metal. Let's do something fun with it.
definitely. Yeah. Speaking of this now, we have to do some 311 stuff.
Yeah, have we did the self-titled, I think.
No, we didn't. I don't think we
No
have.
shit.
You know what I'm thinking of too? Like, what is a really good song by 311 is Use of Time. God damn, that's a great track.
There's dude, I
What's
can't
that on?
even tell you. I mean,
Transistor?
I think it's Transistor New Breed
That's like a late
podcast
song, isn't it?
311.
It's got a great
We
solo part in it.
we did not do 311. Holy shit.
I think we talked about doing it and we never did. We got
It
to find someone to do it with us.
I think it's on the list of uh unscripted deep dives that we wanted to do. Is it on the list but we never did it? Yes. That's why we're both thinking about it. It's on the list but we never did it.
Well, we're gonna change that real quick.
Yeah, we are definitely going to do that one. Awesome. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was fun. If you are a fan of new metal and you haven't heard the Urge, if you're a fan of ska, if you're a fan of punk, you haven't heard the Urge, go back and listen to the first two albums. Go back and listen to the first two albums. They are really good time. Thanks for tuning in, watching, listening. This was fun for me and Tim. The surprise worked, so now I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna outdo this one as a surprise, but we'll find something.
Maybe I'll do the next one. I'll
There
be
we
this.
go.
I'll be the speaker, and it'll be horrible.
It won't be horrible. We'll just make sure you're liquored up beforehand, and everything gets. It'll be potluck pronunciation. But seriously, all you fans, thank you for tuning in, watching, listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you can on YouTube. It really does help us. We don't monetize. Tim and I pay for all this stuff out of our own pocket, hosting and Zoom and all whatnot. But it's kind of cool to get the. We really would love to be able to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube with virtually no marketing, no boosting of anything. It's really kind of cool for us to say that. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Tim, I hope this was a good time for you. Find us next week, everybody. New Breed _ podcast, Twitter and Instagram, newbreedpodcast at gmail.com, 267-297-4627. New episodes every Wednesday. New reactions every Friday. Surprise episodes, shorts, etc. We're going to start putting them out on Mondays. Maybe even some trailers for the episode on Wednesday, on a Tuesday. Who knows? Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Later.